Okay, thank you. Welcome to everyone to our fourth and our final Q&A for reopening Brebeuf Jesuit. We do apologize for the technical difficulties today, but we do thank you for joining us now. I do want to say that we had our opening faculty and staff meeting yesterday. There was great enthusiasm and excitement for finally being able to gather again as a community. Faculty and staff also have their concerns and wonder what the year is going to be like, but they are certainly eager to get started and are preparing to welcome the students next week. Joining us today again is Dr. Aniti Joshi, who is a member of our board and also the chair of our medical task force. But before we begin, like we always do, let's just take a moment for quiet and call upon God to be with us. Lord, teach us to be generous. Teach us to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and not to ask for reward, so that of knowing that we do your will. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Good morning. Dr. Joshi, are you, Dr. Joshi's in and out. Okay, so if she comes back in, we'll give her a chance to introduce herself again, but I know she's having issues with getting on and off. So I'm gonna go ahead and start and we'll be able to answer questions whether or not she's able to join us. Welcome everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for your patience if you had to wait a little bit longer than you thought to get with us today. And just want to start off with, again, echoing what Father Bill said about the faculty and staff's enthusiasm to have our students back in the building with us again. I know we are really looking forward to the first days of school next week. I hope you are too. I've certainly heard from a lot of students that they are. We are in a situation, as you know, that has a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, but I want you all to know very sincerely from me, as we've been working through this over the summer and testing it during July, that we feel prepared to open school and to welcome your students and to learn in person in the best, safest way you could possibly have in a school in this time. So there's going to be a lot of change and a lot of things to adapt to in procedures and routines. But fundamentally, our community at Brebeuf Jesuit is going to be resilient, is going to take care of each other, and I'm very confident that our students will have a great experience being back at school, and that we'll listen to them and to you as we go and adapt things as needed. There will certainly be a lot of flexibility and adaptation this fall, and we'll be very prepared for that. So I feel great about our plan, about our advice that we're given, about our consultations from the experts in our community. And we're certainly thrilled and enthusiastic to welcome everybody back to school next week. I see Dr. Joshi has got connected now. Dr. Joshi, did you want to introduce yourself again and say any opening remarks?
Sure. I'm Dr. Aniti Joshi. I am a Brebeuf parent, well, a parent of alumni now. I have a graduate from this class of 2020 and a graduate from the class of 2017. And I have been privileged to be a member of the board at Brebeuf and have been helping to work with the medical task force to work on the plans for reopening at Brebeuf. So I hope I'll be able to answer any questions that Greg cannot answer, although I think he can answer most of them.
Thank you very much for being with us. As in the past, if you've joined us for these previous Q&A sessions, the session will be recorded. It'll be posted, available as a link from the Brebeuf website, as well as on YouTube, our YouTube channel. If during the session, I'll give a presentation to begin, which attempts to answer many of the questions that we received in the pre-submissions, and I'm grateful for everybody who pre-submitted questions. My presentation will try to encompass most of those questions really. And then I'll spend a few minutes going through a few other detailed questions that we got on pre-submissions. And then anytime during the session, if you want to put a question using the Q&A button in Zoom, with whatever time we have after my presentation, it should be probably about half the time, we'll be able to go through the Q&A questions and answer ones that haven't already been answered live as they come in. And since we started at 11:30, we'll plan to go till 12:30. And again, appreciate you being with us today. So I'm going to share my screen with a presentation that, again, gives us an update of where we are today, August 7th, with a lot of updates since the last time we talked. You received several emails from us with details about how things are happening next week. I want to summarize a lot of that, talk about some pertinent issues and frequently asked questions around things like lunch and athletics and the new hybrid schedule. I'll start with a review of our timeline, the things we've already been through, summer school and athletics in July. And we really enjoyed having our freshmen in for the condensed study skills workshop just the last 2 days. Thank you to all of you who joined us for that and to our academic counselors for running those sessions. You just received yesterday, I believe, an email about new student orientation, which is next Wednesday, and new students, freshmen and transfers. And I'll go through more details for that in a minute. And then our first days of school for everybody. Again, I'll go through more detail, but just the overview on Thursday. We'll have our launch day for the maroon cohort students in person. On Friday, we'll have our launch day for the gold and silver cohorts. And Monday, August 17th is our first regular schedule cycle academic day for all students, maroon in person and gold and silver online that day. So that's our timeline. It is coming up just a week from now. We've had continuing consultation and help with these groups, which I've told you about before. And last week, as you all know, a big additional guidance and rule came into the mix with the Marion County Health Department. So we sent out emails when it happened last week, and then an update this week of the details. But if you didn't hear much about it at the time, the Marion County Public Health Department last Thursday issued a public health order. This is not a recommendation. This is an order that schools, middle schools and high schools in Marion County that are more than 400 students, which we're obviously well above, are needing to do a hybrid academic model to accomplish 50% capacity in the building rather than going 100%. And the metric that they're using, if you didn't see this, this was the slide that they used in their presentation, their press conference last week with Dr. Virginia Kane, the commissioner. We are currently, the table on the column on the left, percent positive, refers to the positivity rate of tests, of COVID tests taken in Marion County. That's tracked on a daily basis, and it's measured as a 7-day moving average. And she's laid out this metric of how she's going to guide schools in Marion County as far as opening restrictions. And so where we are now is in this 6 to 10% positive range. I didn't look at it today, but we were hovering in the 8s and 9s over the last week or two. And the color code for that means yellow. And as you see, middle and high school, hybrid and online, which is the plan that we have and we've put into place since they gave this public health order last week. A lot of you had questions about how long do you anticipate this will last? How will you make these decisions? The Marion County Health Department has helped to make it very clear with the percent positivity rate of tests that they'll continue to give schools guidance of which zone that we are in and what we're able to do from that point. We all need to be prepared that we might be able to go back to 100% if that positivity rate goes down. We would give people some warning in a transition period if that's what happens. Or we might need to move to online only. We might be ordered to do that. I think everybody expects that, but this just helps us get a little bit more of a sense of the reality of what's going to make that requirement. And we had been saying all through the summer that we were going to plan to go back 100%. Then in the last few weeks, as we all know, the trends have turned for the worse. The Marion County Health Department Mayor's office stepped in and made that decision in Marion County. They also, as you see the very bottom line on there, it says certain waivers may apply. They've given schools the opportunity to submit their reopening plans to see if they might qualify for a waiver for any number of reasons. And we have done that. So I just want everybody to know that we have submitted our reopening plan to them, said we are intending to go 100%. And we would certainly like to have all of our students in the building as soon as possible. And as soon as we hear back anything about that, that would affect our plan and I would be letting you know. But that's where we are with the reason that we're going to this hybrid online, about the data in the community, and the Marion County Health Department order is what put this into place. So we've made many updates to our campus reopening plan online at brebeuf.org/reopening is still where you can find all of this. And there are several things you'll see immediately. It's kind of a one-stop shop for all information about our reopening. And at the top, it has the new self-screening app that students will need to set up before the first day of school and use coming in on the first day of school. For those of you who are around in July, this is a new one. This is a different one than the one we used temporarily in summer school, which was a self-created Google form. This new one is a great system, we think, that will do a lot to make this even more effective and make it easy for everybody to use. So you can find that right at the top of the reopening page. You'll also find details on new student and parent orientation, which I'll go through in a minute. And then our list of kind of ongoing links to the different updates that we've been sending regularly through the summer. We'll continue to kind of log and update those on that list as we go. And then the whole reopening plan underneath has all the details. But that plan, that reopening page is still a one-stop shop for you for everything. So next Wednesday, new student orientation for all freshmen and for all transfer students. For reasons of capacity and thinking about how many students can be in a classroom currently, given the public health order, we've also split this into two groups. So we'll have, again, the maroon cohort of students will do the morning session. Again, you all received this email yesterday. So if you're seeing this for the first time, check your email from yesterday and it gives you even more detail than this. But just plan on, if you're a maroon cohort, you can drop your students off anytime between 7:30 and 8. For those of you who have done this before, we will not have parents coming in with the students this time for, again, reasons of space. We have a separate parent orientation session that will be virtual next week. That, again, is in that email you received yesterday. But the maroon cohort will go through their orientation session with senior leaders, going to each of their classes and meeting their teachers as usual, starting the session with a pep rally in the gym with the maroon cohort at 8 o'clock. And they'll be finished at 11 o'clock before lunch. Lunch will not be served at new student orientation this year. We're going to truncate the program, but still get students an opportunity to meet their classmates, to do some icebreakers, to get to meet their teachers, to work their way through their schedule around the building, and get real familiar with things just in a shorter period of time. Gold cohort will come in the afternoon, and you see for the silver cohort, for those students who are online fully, they'll do theirs virtually in a separate session starting at 9 a.m. and we'll receive an email with information of how to log in to that. So that's the plan for new student orientation. Next Wednesday, we're looking forward to having that be an exciting, enthusiastic day, as usual, a fun day for our freshmen and meeting with their senior leaders and their classmates, really making sure they get to know some people if they haven't already in the summer, and be excited for the next day, the first day of school on Thursday the 13th. The Thursday the 13th and Friday, August 14th are what we're calling launch days. We'll have a special schedule on these days where students will go through all 8 of their classes, just periods 1 through 8 in order. Now, it won't be the hybrid online in person as usual for the rest of what happens starting Monday the 17th. Instead, you'll have just the live version for Thursday, August 13th. The maroon group will be there live. The gold and the silver students don't need to do anything on August 13th. They won't join those classes. Their first day will be Friday, August 14th. So on Friday, August 14th, we'll switch. Maroon will not have school and they won't need to log in online. It'll just be the gold being there live all day on Friday the 14th. And the silver will be joining their classes virtually from home. That'll be the first experience with them doing that on Friday, August 14th. I will be sending out more details, including a full schedule for launch day, the agendas, what students will learn on launch day, get you more information about what they'll experience that day very soon. Between now and next Wednesday, we're developing that, and you'll get that communication from us via email. But that will be an opportunity for them to learn a lot of procedures, to learn a lot of our 4 pillars of our risk mitigation strategy. We'll be talking to students about all of these things, about the self-screening app and when to not come to school, about the masks and how to use their masks, and great tips and visuals about the best practices with masks and why they're important, about social distancing and the ways that we're going to ask students to be mindful of this and to practice this every day and around the building. This is a challenge when you get a lot of people together, and it's one that we're going to be very attentive to, and we'll be teaching them about that intentionally on those launch days as well as going forward. And about hygiene procedures. We'll teach them about how frequently they should be washing their hands, about procedures for wiping down surfaces every time they leave a room, which we'll be doing extra cleanings of everything, of course, but students and faculty and staff will all be involved in helping to wipe things down and sanitize regularly throughout the day. That'll just help things to bring down that risk even more. So we'll be teaching them about all that on their launch days. Now I want to speak about this hybrid schedule and about the cohorts. So with a hybrid schedule, again, you've probably heard this already, but the purpose of a hybrid schedule is to reduce the capacity in the building. And the hybrid refers to some of your learning is going to be done in person and some of it's going to be done online. And so every school that's dealing with a hybrid schedule, which is many of them around us now, are working out different ways. And you'll see this vary from school to school, depending on their academic schedule, their needs, and their community. It can be different. The way ours is working is we're going to use our 8-day new schedule rotation, which we had already planned to use this year. And if we were back at 100%, we would still be using this schedule. So we want to provide continuity for that. Students were excited about the schedule back last spring, and so we're excited to keep using it even in the hybrid form. The maroon and gold cohorts well, first we broke out the students who had elected to be fully online. I had several questions in the pre-submissions about the makeup of the maroon, gold, and silver and the process by which that was done. So first, the silver students were self-elected, and there are currently, I think as of today, 35 students who are in the silver cohort, 35 students who have elected to be fully online from the beginning. And as I've said before, that group can make the choice to move back into the in-person situation at any time. And students who are in the maroon and gold cohorts could choose to go fully online also. We want to provide flexibility for families to make the best decision for them, even if that changes in the coming weeks. And that's already happened. We had some students who originally said that they thought they'd be fully online, and then when the hybrid schedule rolled out, they said, okay, I'm comfortable with that. I'll join one of those. So then that leaves the other, I think it's 775 students in either the maroon or gold cohorts. And we tried to split that right down the middle, 50%. And the priority with the split there were three things. One was to balance the classes so that we can have 6 feet of distance in between students in the classrooms. So you want in every class to have a pretty even split between the maroon and the gold. So say if you have a class typically of 22, as close to 11 and 11 as possible. Now, when you have 775 students with 6 or 7 or 8 classes, you can imagine the complexity of that. But that was the highest priority, to balance the classes and then to keep siblings together, as well as we gave the opportunity for people to request a couple people for carpools. Many people requested carpool groups, and we were able to meet those requests as long as they were 2 or 3 students typically. I think we were able to accommodate up to 4 sometimes, but a lot of times when you ended up with students requesting to be together in groups of maybe 5, 6, 7, we were not able to do that. So we were able to meet as many of the carpool requests as we could, but with all the different variables in the mix, we were able to meet about 3 or 4, I think, typically, but not all of them. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy for you to send me an email if you think we got that wrong, but just know that we did the best we could. It's a very complex system, and I'm grateful for all the people who worked on the details of it. So the way the maroon and gold cohorts work, of course, if you're looking at your family calendar, we have the first 2 8-day cycles laid out on a schedule that's available on our website. This is just the first 8-day cycle that I put on this slide. So students in the maroon cohort will plan to be at school. This doesn't include the launch days. So they'll plan to be at school on Thursday the 13th. Then these 4 days, the 17th, 19th, 21st, 25th, and the gold students will be on the opposite days. And then the next 8-day cycle, I don't have the visual, but remember it switches. In the next 8-day cycle, the gold students are on the odd days and the maroon students are on the even days. That's so that we can equalize the amount of in-class meetings for every class period for every student. So we're going to be teaching students to create calendars for themselves that makes this clear to them when they join their classes, when they come to school, and when they don't. We have some new online tools for them to be able to use that link directly to Google Classroom, which I'll talk about in a minute, which will enable them and help them to do this. It's going to be a good life skill for them to be able to organize themselves for these in-person and online days. It is complicated. It's going to take everybody being real thoughtful and intentional about how they organize their schedules, parents and students and teachers alike. So there's the hybrid schedule layout, the things that went into the maroon and gold cohorts. Know that we were able to balance the classes pretty well, like freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors are very close to half and half with students in the maroon and gold cohorts, and classes that are the most variation between classes, I think, is 5 or 6 students. Like you might have one, the maroon cohort is 9 and the gold cohort is 15 or something like that. That happens here and there. But for the most part, we try to keep them real close to each other, and that was a priority. I think you can all see why that's beneficial to consistency, to the consistent experience among students, to the ability to do in-person activities and to vary them, to give them the opportunity to happen both for the maroon and the gold cohorts very similarly. So that's a challenge, but I know our science teachers and other hands-on types of activities teachers who do a lot of that are really thinking a lot about how that's going to work. It's going to be tricky, but we will provide it as much as humanly possible to be able to have that equal in-person learning for every student. This also, I think, helps explain why, some people had asked about why we didn't do it by class or alphabetically or other things like that. I think that the system that we came up with is superior to those options, just in the way that they're able to keep our campus reopening safety measures in place and to be able to balance things as best we can. So thank you for your understanding and patience through that process. And I hope that explains all the background details as best we can. So when students are at home and learning from home, we have, I think, a great system. It's easy to use for them to be able to join their classes every day, and they will. So when they are not in class, when they're at home that day, then they're expected to log on to each class each day, at least for the beginning of class. There might be activities where they are given an asynchronous assignment, and then they can log off and finish it in the time that they have, but they're going to be expected to log on to each class each day. Every student should think about every one of these days as a school day for them, whether they're in school or at home learning. They're a school day. They're meant to be on for the school day, and they're joining their classes on the class schedule, and then getting instruction from there. They're going to join the classes through Google Classroom. It's a one-stop place. So this is just one piece. This, what you see in front of you, is one piece of the email piece that explains how to get onto the online system. That's linked to the email that we sent you a couple of days ago, and it's also available on our website. Students are already, by this point, who have been at Brebeuf, very familiar with how to go to their Google Classroom site and to find their classes. And there will be a link, a button to join the class live that is right there at the top on every one of their classes that they can easily find. So they'll easily log in that way at the beginning of each class, join the class. We've outfitted every class with new cameras and microphones that are very good, that when you're seeing the class from home, you really can hear things well, and you can see the class very well from the angles where we've put the cameras, and you can participate in the class. That was really our goal, not just to be able to watch passively, but for the students who are at home to be able to participate in class. And our teachers will be mindful of different ways to involve the students who are at home by asking them questions, by having them participate in discussion, by inviting their questions. The students who are at home will be able to speak live to the students who are in the classroom through the microphones, through what's available in the room. And so they will be participating from home, not just watching from home. So this system took a lot of work and resources to put together. I'm grateful to our IT department for setting up a great system for us, and for our teachers for adapting to this system. And I don't want to sugarcoat that part of it. It's an adaptation for teachers for sure. And I'm going to be teaching a class this fall myself, and I'm preparing myself for the experience we went through with the teachers yesterday in our meetings of teaching the students in the classroom and the students at home simultaneously. It is a challenge and it is a new experience. So I think our teachers are very equipped to handle this as well as anybody. And I will again seek everybody's patience and understanding, and as we adapt and learn as we go. But we'll be ready to create the best participatory system from home that you can get when we start these online classes next week. So there's a little bit about the online learning at home system. A lot of questions about lunch, and lunch is a big challenge in this environment. The 50% hybrid makes it better, actually. It gives us the ability to better space out students and mitigate risk better than we would be at 100%. So I do feel good about that aspect of the 50%. So the way that lunch is going to work, as you may know, our new schedule creates lunch periods for students that are tied to classes, which is actually extraordinarily helpful for what we need to do right now. So we just got lucky with that, as we had planned our new schedule. Turns out that it's really helpful to be able to tie the lunch to a classroom, because what we're going to need to do, we have capacity in the cafeteria for less than 100 students. And at any given time, there's more than 100 students who are on their lunch period. And then we also, as you might know, have during break periods, students are always able to go eat lunch during their breaks too, and that'll still be the case. But the way it'll work now with the lunch periods, every student every day has a lunch period that's tied to a class. During their lunch period, if you're a freshman, sophomore, or a junior, then you will eat in your classroom, spaced 6 feet apart. You'll be directed by the teacher. The teacher will be in there with you, directed of when it's okay to take off your masks in the classroom just to eat. And then when you're finished eating, to put it back on. We'll have new trash cans in every classroom for them to dispose of their waste, and procedures to have those picked up right away in the hallway to be able to manage all that with our facilities crew. So students will either be able to bring their own lunch or to purchase it in the cafeteria. Even if they're eating in the classroom, they'll be dismissed to go down to the cafeteria to purchase a grab-and-go lunch, which is what they'll be offering there. We'll have an efficient system for them to do that, to purchase it, and then to come back to the classroom and eat it there. And I think that'll all be possible during that lunch period, that 30 minutes there. So anyway, I talked about freshmen, sophomores, and juniors will all be directed by their teachers of how to do this. We'll talk it through on the launch days, and we'll actually experience it on the launch days. There will be this setup on the launch days as well. And they'll experience for the first time this system where the freshmen, sophomores, juniors come back to their classroom or stay in their classroom to eat. Then for seniors and students who are eating during their break period, they'll be the ones who will be able to eat in the cafeteria. We'll have space for that number of students in the cafeteria. So they will be able to either, again, bring their own lunch or purchase it in the cafeteria, use the cafeteria tables, which have been reorganized and spaced apart at 6 feet. It'll be a masks off, area. The cafeteria will no longer be an area that is able to handle students socializing, congregating, which it usually is in past times. Now it'll just be for eating, and it'll be for students who are either on break period or those seniors during the lunch period who are going to use it to eat. Students, as I talked about before, will always also have opportunities to go outside to eat while the weather allows. That'll be actually a great way to handle that, and teachers will help direct that through their classes when they have the opportunity. Or there's just different, we've added picnic tables and spaces for outside eating for students if they're on their break periods. And that's certainly an extra way of getting safety in an eating situation, is to go outside for it. So we'll be encouraging that and helping to organize that a little bit with students during the days also. You'll receive more information in another email today about just cafeteria procedures. As many of you know, for a while now, we've had the ability for students to use their student IDs, which they'll get on those launch days when they get their pictures taken. They'll use those student IDs to purchase lunch by swiping them. And you have, as parents, you have an account that you can load up online. You'll receive all those instructions in a separate email just about this that I think is coming to you today. We'll also be transitioning, like many businesses are doing that handle transactions. We're going to be transitioning to completely cashless for safety reasons, and it's also for most efficiency reasons. So we'll be accepting cash for a period of time at the beginning of the year, but we'll be transitioning to completely cashless, where students always will purchase lunch by swiping their ID, and that will help that line move most efficiently as well. So there's a lot about lunch procedures. Again, that will start actually on the launch days. When you see the launch day schedule, the lunch periods will be set up a lot like this, not with those exact times, but the lunch period will be done this way. It'll be our first practice with students of doing lunch in this way. Also, a lot of pre-submitted questions about athletics. As we detailed in our latest email, students have the opportunity to participate in athletics, whether they're online from home that day or in school. That's in line with IHSAA guidance. And we think that's the right and fair thing to do, to give students the opportunity to participate in athletics, whether they're in the in-person group that day or the online group that day. So we have certainly a lot of questions and concerns in the public about how athletics are working safely, and we've been working really hard to make them as safe as possible at Brebeuf. We have some experience with it now, we feel. We've been doing athletics for about a month now, since July 6th on campus. And athletics, we started off, we kind of phased it in with, activities that were more distanced and, conditioning, but then on to full drills and other activities, even in contact sports, which, certainly football, even by some definitions, soccer and volleyball are contact sports. So those are, as they've said in the IHSAA, inherently higher risk activities. We've just got to be mindful and realistic about that. We have definitely learned that we are going to be very intentional and mindful and directive to students about when masks are on or off during athletic activities. If you haven't heard this before, the guidance is that masks can be off indoors during athletic activities if students are engaged in vigorous physical activity. It's actually safer to have masks off if they're engaged in vigorous physical activity. So coaches, trainers are giving them instructions about when masks can be on and off inside when they're engaged in athletics. Our intention, our attempt is to really keep masks on as much as possible. So for instance, if students are on the sideline, not engaged in the actual activity at the moment, they should have masks on, and so on like that. So each team is giving students directions as they go. When they're outside, same thing. Masks are generally off outside. Anyway, the masks on and off is a point of emphasis for our coaches that we're working through with students. We feel like in our month of experience so far, we feel optimistic in the sense that we have been successful in tracking and containing symptoms, close contacts, and positive cases so far. As you've all heard, as we've shared with the whole community, we have one positive case of a coach that was on campus, but again, no spread from there, very contained, and I think transparent in the way that we communicated about it and worked with any close contacts. Same with when we had some students who had tested positive before they returned to campus with the programs they had been in. and with their close contacts. We feel good about the experience that we've had so far, that we've gotten, that we've learned from in July. And again, let's go back to what I said at the beginning. While there are risks and concerns with athletics in this time, I feel as prepared as anybody to say that we are ready to be able to guide and to track and to contain anything that happens. We should all be realistic, as you've seen with schools going back to school, and you'll see daily new positive cases of students reported in schools. That's going to be the case for every school, and including ours, I'm sure. And so you've already gotten an example of how we respond to a positive case in the building, and we think that those procedures will enable us to contain and to respond appropriately and to keep people safe in those circumstances, which are unavoidable once people start coming back together in today's environment. So our systems I feel good about in athletics, and that's why we're keeping athletics happening. We'll continue to monitor IHSAA guidance and state guidance in our decisions on that. And we have, pretty soon, we have spectator opportunities. Teams have their first contests, and we're submitting plans for those to the Marion County Health Departments and to the Mayor's office as directed. You should expect to hear soon about the rules and plans for things like volleyball games, football games. The capacities will be limited for sure. You won't have the opportunity to have as big of a crowd as usual, and that's appropriate. We'll have very thoughtful guidance on how those work coming out very soon, as soon as the plans are made, approved, and in advance of when the first contests happen. Just a couple of reminders, things that I've shown you before I get into the Q&A. Not coming to school sick is the most important thing that we can do. And we're gonna have a process by which we have on your self-screening app, if you answer yes to basically any of the questions on the self-screen, you'll be directed to stay home and to contact the attendance line. Really, it should be a parent contacting the attendance line. The same number and email, Madeline McKinney-Torres, as usual, that you've done for attendance in the past. And we're gonna ask you to let us know if you're staying home, or even if you're at home and would be online that day but can't participate in your classes, you should also contact the attendance line if you're sick. We wanna know that too. So again, we wanna track and be able to know and contain any symptoms, any students with symptoms, close contacts, or positive cases. We need to know that right away so we can help to manage all that. So the general rules, the simplest way to break this Indiana State Department of Health chart down is that if you have any symptoms, then you need to either stay home for 10 days or go see a doctor and ask them if they think it's non-COVID to send us a note that says that for you to come back to school earlier than 10 days. When you contact us at the attendance line, we'll walk you through a process. We have an internal form that we're using for this. We'll ask you some questions. And if you say that your child has one of these symptoms, then we'll give you a return date. Say, okay, you need to wait 10 days. Here's your return date to school. Please stay home until this date, or go see a doctor. And if they say you can come back to school, then have them send us that note, and then your student can come back to school. But we'll set the return date for you after we learn more about what's happening. And then again, if you've had close contact with somebody who is tested positive, that's whether we tell you that as you have been a close contact because it's something we know about, or whether it's just something in your family, if anybody in your household tests positive for COVID, or if you learn somebody that in your circle out there in the world has tested positive and you've had close contact with them, meaning you've been within 15 minutes, within 6 feet of them for 15 minutes or more, then we would ask you to let us know that then through the attendance line, to keep your child home for 14 days of quarantine before they come back to school. Again, we'll set your return date. And during that time, you'll be able to join your classes every day online as long as you're not too sick to do so. Again, attendance line, we're gonna rely on you reporting each of these things to us. We're been really thankful for how people have worked with us in July at summer school. We felt like we were able to track things and again, contain them very well in that way. If you have any student who tests positive for COVID at any time, and or somebody in your household, we want you to let us know that immediately. And we will have, again, the attendance line, and I think we're gonna have a hotline for that published as well. Because even if that happens off school hours, if you find that out at 6 or 7 p.m., we'd like for you to let us know and we can carry out some procedures from there. Basically, if a student or somebody in your family is tested positive and has been in the building, that's what we need to know right away. So we'll send out more information about how to let us know that, the quickest way to let us know that. And that's part of this return to school protocol as well. Lastly, and I think I've already addressed this, so just as a review, I showed this in the last one. When somebody in the community tests positive and has been in the building, we notify the Marion County Health Department. We work with them. They give us guidance. We will inform all close contacts. This is why we're having assigned seats in every classroom, that we have a system where we can immediately pull who the student has been sitting closest to. We'll inform close contacts that we know of from the classroom, from the athletic activities they've been involved with, and we'll inform those students right away, those families, that they need to 14-day quarantine. And then we'll inform the whole community, as we did with our positive case on campus in July, that there has been one. And you'll have flexibility at that point. If you need to stay home and online at your discretion, you'll be able to do that. We'll have to maintain privacy of students, faculty, and staff in those circumstances. So we probably won't tell you as much detail as you may want to know, but we'll tell you what you need to know to be able to protect yourself and your child in that situation. That's going to benefit the entire community. And all of this is, we're teaching students and our whole community that this is, of course, for our own safety, but really it's as a community to band together and to protect each other during this time. And so you'll see our messaging about that. If you saw on social media, our AMDG interpretation, Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, usually for the greater glory of God, but now also stands for awareness, masking, distancing, and greater good. We're doing this for the greater good. You'll see our signs about that around the building as well. You can always use reopening@brebeuf.org. We're going to maintain this as a one-stop shop for any questions about any reopening issues. Feel free to use that anytime. Okay, at this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and move to some of the pre-submitted questions. Anita, I saw you jumped on video. Did you have anything to share before I start doing this? Anything to add?
I just wanted to make sure that I could help to get you through some of the Q&A questions that came up.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna first again start with some of these pre-submitted questions with things that I haven't already dealt with. So one question you saw in our email about the lockers are not gonna be assigned. This is keeping with the Marion Health Department public order that locker use needs to be limited. We think the best way to do this is just to not assign lockers from day one. And if we get the chance to, we will down the road. But for now, we're just not going to assign lockers. We're going to be asking students to basically carry their materials with them from class to class. That'll take some planning on students to know which books to bring to school each day based on each class. Again, it'll be part of the learning process of how they plan and organize themselves. We do have, for athletic equipment, we have the ability for students to store their athletic equipment in the athletic area, either in athletic locker rooms or in the athletic offices. That's how it's been for a long time. We'll continue that. So if students need to bring in athletic equipment, they should just go ahead and bring it straight in the morning when they get there to the athletic area, and they should be told by their coaches beforehand, or there'll be somebody there to help them in figuring out where to store that. And if anybody has any other special storage needs or things like that, just contact the principal's office or the dean's office, and we're happy to help you out. Question, can students bring their own cleaning supplies to use prior to sitting down? Absolutely, and we encouraged all students in summer, and we'll continue to encourage all students to carry around their own little personal bottle of hand sanitizer to use all the time. They're more than welcome to do that. And again, we'll have procedures and reminders to students that they wipe down surfaces that they've been on every time they leave a room. And as students come into a new room, if they want to wipe down their surfaces they come in, they're be encouraged to do that as well. We have hand sanitizer bottles in every classroom. And as students come and go from different areas, we'll be encouraging them to sanitize each time, and each time they take off their mask and put it back on. As well as when they come into the building. Those of you who were here in July saw as students entered the gym lobby, every time they're asked to take a squirt of hand sanitizer at the tables on their way in. So students can bring their own sanitizing supplies, but we have plenty of them also in the building, and we'll be directing students on procedures for how to use them. Question about students that are scheduled for the Learning Center, about how this is going to work in the hybrid model. So the Learning Center students can expect also to join their Learning Center cohort each day when they're online from home. Students in the Learning Center cohorts will also be 50% half and half. So the students who are in the Learning Center that day will connect with their teacher in the Learning Center, and students who are online that day will also in that hour period have plenty of time to connect individually with their Learning Center teacher every Learning Center period. So we expect between that and other communications, phone calls home and things like that from Learning Center teachers, that we'll still have plenty of Learning Center support available to students, whether they're in school or at home. And you can expect that on a daily basis for students who are in the Learning Center. Patty Brown in the Learning Center is also available to you for any questions beforehand, and happy to answer how that is all coming together. Question, will class sessions be recorded in case a student is sick or has an appointment and is unable to log into the Google Meet class? The answer is no. In general, we are not going to record classes. We want students to join the classes live and participate, and not set up a system where they just watch passively. So that doesn't rule out the fact that there may be teachers who record some lessons and post them on Google Classroom for all students to watch asynchronously anytime. That could definitely happen. But we are not, as a rule, recording each class so that students can watch it at their discretion. We want students to join the class at the time it happens from home. So if they are not able to do that on a given day for reasons that are like usual, like either they're sick or there's a family need for various reasons, contact the attendance line, let them know that it'll be an excused absence. But we need you to contact the attendance line if you're not going to join class on a given day. So we're not recording classes. We are expecting and asking students to be there live with us at the time each day. Okay, and then I'll just note, and I think this is just the way that it is, and I just want you to know we hear you and we understand you. In our pre-submitted questions, we had a range of and comments. I think that we all probably know this, but it definitely makes it real to see it. We had several comments that were in the range of, I'm really disappointed that we're not in class every day. I really wanted that, and I wonder if this is the best thing for our kids. And then we also had several comments, about an equal number, that were, I wonder why we're not delaying the start of school and why we're still being in person at all. Is that really the best thing? That is what schools are dealing with right now, what we're all dealing with as parents, these decisions, and there are no easy solutions. And so we recognize that, we recognize and appreciate and understand the anxieties that are out there, and we certainly feel them sometimes ourselves too. But again, I want to reassure everybody that we feel like our plan in looking at the opportunities, the options out there, and what other schools are doing, and the guidance that we have is the best that a school could possibly have for this situation, and that we feel ready and enthusiastic about going forward with it. So we appreciate everybody sharing how they're feeling about it. We will keep asking you. You can expect more surveys from me as the school year gets going. But I wanted to call that to attention because it was definitely striking to me. It's striking to me every time. Just people feel very different ways about this, levels of comfort and desires for this. And we definitely understand that, and we'll continue to work with you throughout this time. Okay, those are all my pre-submitted questions that I think that I didn't answer to this point. And we still have 17 minutes, I see on the clock, to deal with our live Q&A. So Dr. Joshi, did you have any that you want to address?
Sure. So a couple of questions specifically for you, Greg, were regarding students who are staying home, and how would they be able to get pictures taken? How would they be able to make sure they get their IDs? So if they're doing online learning, what's the procedure for that?
Absolutely. So school pictures are going to be done on the launch days, as well as IDs. And the IDs are printed out right there after you get your picture, for those of you who haven't been through this before. So all students who are present in the building on Thursday, the maroon students, will be asked either during their break period, or they could show up and do it before school. They'll be opened up. It'll be in the East Gym. It'll be opened up before school starts. I think they'll be set up as of 7 o'clock or something like that. And you can come in and get your picture taken. Real quick process. Get your student ID printed. So all maroon students will need to get that done during the launch day on one of their break periods or before school. Students in the gold cohort will do the same on Friday, their launch day. And students who are in the silver cohort are asked to come in on Thursday the 13th, because they'll be online with their classes on Friday the 14th. So students in the silver cohort can pull right up. You can pull, if you're dropping your student off or just waiting there for a minute, it shouldn't take more than 5-10 minutes, I don't think. Can pull right up to that, the drop-off point at the gym lobby. We'll direct students, they can actually even go up the ramp towards the wellness center and go in the side door to the East Gym if they like, or they can come in the gym lobby and we'll direct them to go right to the East Gym to get their picture taken. They can leave right after that. So I think we're ready to pull off a very efficient process for that. And students in the silver cohort should plan to just stop by the building on Thursday the 13th in order to get their student ID. If they don't, if they can't, if they're not comfortable with it, not the end of the world. We will have a picture retake day, makeup day down the road like we usually do, because there are always some students who can't get their pictures taken that day. We'll have a process to get students their IDs if they miss it on those days through the dean's office. But if you're fully online, the student IDs are, if you're never coming into school, they're not going to be necessary for you anyway. But if you are coming into school, anytime you come in the building, as you know, you need to show your student ID in the gym lobby, and you will need them anytime you need to purchase lunch. So we recommend that all silver cohort students do come in, get their picture taken for the yearbook, get a student ID on Thursday, and we think that'll be a smooth process.
I think there was also a question about on launch days, the assumption that they will need to bring everything that they would for their regular day and just treat it like a regular day. So I'm going to assume that yes, that's the answer to that question. Another question would be about seniors helping, and are they getting divided on the days that they're coming in to help between a morning and an afternoon group, or are they doing, how are you organizing that?
You mean for the, is that for the
launch, yeah, the help day for launch day, I guess, or for when seniors are coming in.
Also, you might refer to the freshman transfer orientation. We do still have senior leaders, senior guides helping with freshman orientation, and they'll be there with both the maroon cohort and the gold cohort. So there will be senior leaders working with the freshmen and transfer students on the new student orientation days. And then during the launch days, it's all students will be there. Yeah, I think that question about about senior helpers is about the new student day. Yes.
So yes, students will bring books and supplies to launch day, correct? Yes, that is the answer to that question.
So those classes, like I said, will include a good bit of instruction on just procedures, but you can expect the classes will get down to business too. You know, you'll have some learning happening on those launch days. So yeah, you should bring your materials to be ready for class. If you've got your textbooks, I'd say go ahead and bring them. Teachers will be very understanding if you don't have all your textbooks there with you in class on the first day. But if you've got them and you have enough that you're able to carry around, I know it's the one day that all 8 classes meet, so it might be a lot of stuff since you don't have a locker yet. So bring what is feasible for you on those launch days. But yes, do be prepared to do some learning that day in each of your classes.
Lots of logistical questions on how students are going to know what lunch period they're assigned to. I'm assuming you're going to send out that information.
Well, actually, students will learn from each of their classes which lunch they're assigned to for that class. If you remember from the rotating schedule, each class period meets during the lunchtime during the 8-day rotation at some point. So every class will have an assigned A, B, or C lunch. So the teachers will talk to the students the first day on, for this class, this is an A lunch class. So for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, they'll come to class first, then the teachers will start with lunch, and then they'll have class after that. For classes that have B lunch, they'll start with class, then go to lunch, then come back to class, and so on. So students will receive those instructions from the teachers of each of their specific classes, because it'll be different for every student. A student won't have A lunch every time or B lunch every time. They'll have whatever lunch is assigned to that class that they're in.
And then I think there's several questions coming in very quickly. So if we can't get to all these, I'm sure we can answer them after the session as well. But question about Marion County recommending a 14-day quarantine if you're traveling into a red zone state. I mean, technically for a while, we're a red zone state too. So, you know, I'm not really sure that, you know, but clearly Florida is a different issue. Is Brebeuf going to ask students to declare that and do a 14-day quarantine?
We haven't yet, but I wouldn't rule it out. So we're just going to keep as up to date on all that guidance as we can. I did hear that Marion County had put some states as restrictions on Marion County residents. It's still a little bit unclear to me if that should apply to a Hamilton County resident that's coming into a school in Marion County. We haven't been given that guidance. So anyway, that's more inside baseball than you need. But we will update our requirements as needed, and that would show up on the self-screen. That's how the best way you can learn about that is by paying good attention to the self-screening form. And whatever questions are on the self-screen are going to reflect the most recent updates and guidance and requirements. So if we were to go to that, we would put on the self-screening form, I have not traveled to any of these states in the past however many days. So yeah, I wouldn't rule out that happening. That may be something that we need to add, but we haven't to this date.
Another question about sports practices. Are they going to be slightly delayed to ensure that students who are learning at home that day, have time to complete and come back and travel to campus and get to their sports practices on time? I'm assuming
That's a
the
great
answer is
question.
yes,
Yes, we will make sure that practices start in sufficient time for the at-home students to get there. So I haven't had that specific conversation with our athletic department, but I will, and we'll make sure that's happening.
Another question is about club meetings and how are they going to work in the hybrid schedule? Because as we know from previous years, club meetings used to meet on PRT time. So, you know, I don't know how you're going to do that. Greg, good luck.
Clubs. So the way that we started doing several of our clubs last year is that clubs can have their own Google Classroom pages as well. And so if a student is a regular member of the club and they're on the Google Classroom page for that club, which is always an all-in invitation to students, you know, so we'll have kind of call-out days for clubs early in the year. We'll have them both for maroon and gold days so that students can be there in person either time if they want. But then going forward, probably clubs will meet on certain days, and if a student is in person, they can be there. But if they're at home that day, they can join the club meeting online, because club meetings generally happen in classrooms. We have the system there ready for them to use, and that should be able to happen, I think. So I would expect us to probably take a little bit to work out the kinks of that whole system with the student leaders of clubs. But I would expect that, yeah, every club will set up a in-person and online meeting opportunities for when the club meets.
Also, question about, you know, technology issues and connectivity issues, and how are we ensuring that people are connected and have resources and can, you know, sign on, and then making sure, I guess, that if they're at home and are they going to be doing their video? Are they going to be encouraged to turn on their video during class?
Yep, great question. So first on the last piece, the students are encouraged to turn on their video during class, yes. And we are going to be working with them to give them some kind of tips and guidance on best ways to do that in a way that is comfortable for you and that works best for your learning. So what we've seen and what we learned, what every school I think learned in the spring, is that students joining from home would often be more comfortable with their video off, and that often resulted in more of a passive kind of thing. Now, we don't want to infringe on students, you know, personal sense of safety or of privacy. And so it's a tricky line to balance. The way that we're going to try to teach students about it is to think of it as you're joining a class as life preparation for when you're joining a Zoom meeting as a professional, which is, you know, what all of us adults are doing in our lives at this point, right? And there are appropriate ways to join a meeting and to participate in a meeting as a professional. And I think we're going to talk about it in a very similar way with students, always with the option of saying that, like, you know, if you need to opt out of being live, of what you're, you know, what's going on in the background or of your screen, we certainly understand that and will support you in that. But we're going to really encourage students to be live online, in person, face to face with their classes as much as possible, and certainly in ways that we do think that helps the learning environment most of the time. And so we'll be talking with students about that. We'll also be flexible with them. We're going to be trying to promote the best learning atmosphere that we can, and we think that students being live online is a part of that. Then the technology pieces, there will be more information on technology details coming out soon in updates that everybody will get from our IT department. The connectivity issues at home, there's an IT help desk that students can use anytime that can help with those issues, with issues of being able to get onto a class from home, with having a bad Wi-Fi at home, with things like that. Students will have immediate access to support from home from our IT help desk, either over the phone or online. So that information is available. There's already a link and instructions on that in the information we've sent out already. We will reiterate that and send that more to students and families as we go.
I'm going to tackle a couple of the sort of contact tracing and testing and percent positivity questions, if that's okay with you, Greg. But basically, Marion County Health Department has been very upfront about how they're looking at background cases. I know there was a question about whether, you know, since they're testing just people who have symptoms, you know, aren't you getting an artificially elevated, you know, rate, is my understanding of that question. I really think that the truth is common things are common, And we all know that allergies in Indiana are pretty extensive. We also know that colds and other viral illnesses and a variety of other things are going to be going on at the same time. And so in fact, the majority of people who are testing, when you say they're symptomatic, a symptom is a runny nose, a symptom is a cough, a symptom is congestion. And a lot of emergency rooms, physicians, offices are really pushing the idea of testing as many people as possible, which actually adds to a much more accurate background rate, because in fact you are testing people who really are quote unquote positive, having symptoms, but actually may not have significant classic COVID symptoms. Those are not the only people that are being tested. There's also studies going on currently in the Indianapolis area, again, doing background randomized testing that are figured into part of those figures as well. So I think the accuracy of 9%, 9.2 as of the last published numbers with the Marion County Health Department are fairly accurate. I think it makes sense to close at a certain point. I think public health officials have been doing this for decades. We've done this with other outbreaks. I think we understand the necessity to open, close, or hybrid at certain models. So I would ask you to trust public health officials on those recommendations. And we at Brebeuf have been following those pretty closely. I think that getting tested is right now, there is availability for testing. And so people can go and receive testing. If you feel that you'd like your child tested, that's fine. Remember that testing is a snapshot in time. It does not determine your test results come back 48 to 72 hours. In that 48 to 72 hours, what have you been doing and who have you made in contact with? I have no idea. And so part of this issue for all of us is that we need to be honest with one another. We need to be caring about one another. And there is no negative repercussions for a student who feels that they need to stay home, for a faculty member who feels they need to stay home. I think Brebeuf has been very clear about that. So I really think that if we can give as much information as possible, trust in the veracity of that information, and then be able to trace appropriately, we are going to do a tremendously good job. Keeping kids safe at school is frankly a lot easier than keeping kids safe outside of school. A school is simply a reflection of the community around you, which is why the community percentage cases drive what's happening in schools. So if you are concerned, then you need to follow those same precautions and concerns when your child is outside of the school building as when they are inside of the school building. So I think that will allow us the best chance of success to get everybody back to full school, which I know all of us as parents would love to have. So I think it's important to keep all of these things in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi. Let's see, a couple more questions that we have time for here. How will changing classes be handled? So we are going to try to stagger the passing periods, and we'll do that by releasing some of the classes a couple minutes before the rest, giving them time to get to kind of move, not all pour out into the hallways at once, and to start moving towards their next classes. Next classes will all start at the same time. So we think just spreading it out in that way, letting some classes out a couple minutes early, we're going to start by managing it that way. And we think with 50% and with that alteration, we'll be able to stagger passing periods in a way that'll be comfortable in the hallways. And we'll see how the hallways look with that, and we'll adapt if needed as we go. Probably time for, go ahead.
One more I think you got here was specifically regarding the performing arts. There have been a couple of questions regarding how is singing, band, theater, or performing arts classes going to be handled. I know that the Performing Arts Department has been working very hard on this and trying to figure out creative ways. Many of you may have seen the creativity that's come out of that department with choir performances and other things. I believe that Mr. Tipple is planning to address his choir students directly with a parents' question and answer session, but I would have to leave that rest of that question to Greg. That's the only thing I'm aware of.
Thank you. Okay, it is 12:30, and I believe, as I look through the Q&A, I believe that we've answered every one of these questions. There's always a chance I might have missed one, but I believe that in the last hour, we've addressed all of them. So if you asked a question that hasn't directly been answered on the live Q&A, what I'd ask you to do is to go back. If you missed the presentation at the beginning, just make sure it wasn't already answered. And if it really wasn't, send me an email, please. I'd be happy to answer a question that I haven't answered already. But I think that I've answered each of these questions either in the presentation or in the Q&A that I've had. Father Bill or Dr. Joshi, any final comments?
Greg, just one thing. There's a question that came up in the chat questions in terms of senior privilege and coming and going.
Yep. Yeah, so that was sent out in the email that went out a couple of days ago. Senior privileges will still exist. They'll still have the opportunity to leave campus for lunch or on their break periods. We think that that doesn't increase the risk to the community any more than it already is, because students are coming and going in every day. And we need to teach seniors to, like Dr. Joshi said, be careful and cautious in all the right ways when they're out in the community. All students need to know that and to do that. And so we'll be talking to seniors about that for sure, about role modeling and practicing good leadership in that way. But it'll also help with the crowding of things in the cafeteria and so on, if seniors are still able to leave campus for their lunch. So we think that'll be a positive to still have that and to have that opportunity for seniors. Certainly if it seemed like it was unsafe at any time, it's something that we could pull back on. So I wouldn't rule that out. But at this time, we've planned to continue senior privilege as usual.
There was also a question about starting a new club, but I think that might be something you can answer on a personal level, Greg. I don't know how that procedure would go if a student wanted to start a new club.
Sure, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. So starting a new club, process for that is to send an email to Dean Adams with your proposal. She will direct you, she'll guide students through the process of starting a new club, of the requirements that we have to do that, and we'll be happy to help. We're always encouraging that of students to get new things going, and Dean Adams can help you through the process of that. So if you haven't yet sent an email about it to Dean Adams, you can go ahead and do that before school starts, and she can speak with your student about it on the first days of school. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Again, if I haven't answered any of your questions, please email me. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again for your patience with the Zoom problems we had at 11. And we really appreciate our whole community, really appreciate all of you. And again, look forward to, let's get some rest this weekend, have some nice family time together. And we're getting ready for start of school next week. All freshmen and transfer students on Wednesday the 12th, and all maroon students on Thursday the 13th, and all gold students and silver students online on Friday the 14th. We'll have more information about the launch day schedules soon, and we really look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.